Ready? Yeah? Call a meeting to order. This is the Genoa Township Board of Zoning Appeals. It's May 28th, 2024, 7 p.m. at the Genoa Township Hall, 5111 South Old 3C Highway, Westerville, Ohio, 43082. We have three cases on the agenda tonight. BZA case 2024-04, 6201 Maxtown Road, which is an area variance, which is the second meeting. BZA case 2024-05, 5058 Nyack Circle, which is also an area variance, first meeting. And BZA case 2024-06, 5986 Hawthorne Valley Drive, which is a conditional use permit, and this is the first meeting. Staff present is Susan Dortch and Joe Schaefer, and we also have council present, Peter Griggs. And I will call the roll. Mr. Phillips? Here. Mr. Hanson? Here. Ms. Yu?
Here.
Mr. Christian?
Here.
And the chair is present. Mr. DeRose is absent. And I'll read the following statement into the record. As is the adopted policy of the Board of Zoning Appeals, all applicants will be granted an opportunity to make formal presentation. The audience will then be granted an opportunity to comment, followed by questions from the board. This policy was adopted by the Board of Zoning Appeals to provide for the orderly discussion of business scheduled for consideration. The chairperson may limit repetitive debate. And comments, by the way, any public comment should be directed towards the board, not towards the applicant. It's not a question and answer opportunity for the public comment. Okay, first item on the agenda is review and approval of the meeting minutes from the Genoa Township Development and Zoning Department for the hearings held April 23rd, 2024. I'll give you a moment to look those over, and then I will entertain a motion for approval. I think I looked at these so long ago. These were both continuances, I think, were they not? Yes.
Move to approve the minutes as presented.
Mr. Phillips, any second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Yu. Any comment, discussion, revisions, anything? No? Okay, all in favor of approval of minutes from April 23rd, 2024, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Mr. Christian and Mr. Hanson abstain. Okay. First public hearing is an area variance. We'll call that to order at 7:05. We'll call the first hearing to order at 7:05, and I'll read the legal notice into the record. And any persons that wish to speak on this application, please rise and raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, be seated. And I will read the application in the record. Berkeley Ellis, Cardinal Stealth Storage, Westerville LLC, on behalf of Robert L. Taylor and Terry Deersing Taylor, co-trustee, requesting approval of a variance to section 1505.05 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution to allow the maximum gross floor area of a commonly controlled business operation to exceed the maximum allowed 65,000 square feet of gross floor area within one or more buildings on parcel number 317-342-01-015-000 and parcel number 317-342-01-016-000, known as 6201 Maxtown Road, Westerville, Ohio 43082, that is currently zoned light industrial L1, or LI, excuse me. BZA case 2024-04, and it's been continued from April 23rd, 2024. We have accepted into evidence Exhibits A through D, which include the legal notice, the sign-in sheet, the application, and the staff report. I will also, I note that the applicant is represented by counsel, who can introduce himself when it's time to present their case, and I want to affirm that counsel is comfortable with the 4 members of the board and that it does require 3 positive votes, 3 affirmative votes. For
Joe
approval.
Miller, 52 East Gay, counsel for Cardinal Self Storage. Yes, we are comfortable proceeding this evening. Thank you,
Okay,
Mr.
thank
Chair.
you, Mr. Miller. Okay, we will begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Mark. As stated in the legal notice, the known address of this property is 6201 Maxtown Road. According to the Delaware County Auditor's site, the Taylors purchased the property in July of 2011, or became the owners in 2011. On November 28, 2023, a variance application, case BZA 2023-14, requesting relief from Article 15, Section 1505.05 to construct 79,585 square feet of building on the subject parcels. As the this is the same, sorry, I lost my train of thought. That application was approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. And the current application is requesting an additional 1,021 525 square feet of building, and that was received on March the 26th, 2024.
Susan, can I stop you? Can you
Yep.
tell me what the additional amount is? Is it 1,021 or I missed that? I apologize.
So from the first variance,
Uh-huh.
they're asking an additional 107,250 square feet over the first variance.
So the first variance was 75,000 or 78,000, if memory serves?
It's like 79,585. Correct. Yes.
79,585.
From, what did we approve? 78,000 previously, is that correct?
No, you approved 79,585 on the first
No.
variance.
Okay,
And then this one is asking
oh,
for 107,250. So they're asking for 121,835 more square feet, right?
no.
525? 120,525.
Okay, boy, now I am lost, thanks. Sorry, I just got back from vacation, but the math doesn't work for me.
You are correct, 50. I apologize.
So,
If I may, sir, I don't mean to interrupt.
go ahead, Mr. Miller.
There's obviously a
I
65,
just want to know what the number is.
obviously a 65,000 square foot limitation on the books in Genoa
Correct.
Township. This board previously approved a variance to 79,585 total
Okay.
square feet for the site.
Okay,
Currently, the plan before you is asking for total build area of 186,835. 186,835 in total.
how, okay.
And
all right, well,
121,835 more square feet.
121,525 more than the,
525.
no, My math's not good, that's why I went to law school, but it's 121,000. I believe it's 100 and,
It's
We'll
here,
have-
it's
well-
here in the paper on B, it's 121,835.
thank you,
If our math is correct.
thank you.
I'm going with you.
It's a part of the staff report.
You know, and
It's on the back of the first page.
I have a question too now.
Ah.
If the total request is 186,835, is that right? That's on page 2 of the application,
Yes,
requesting 186,835, and we approved 79,585. Should this request be the difference between those two numbers?
yes, it should. That variance is already a record, correct.
and that's the
And that's not
121.
121,000.
It's 107,250.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's on the back of the first page as well. Up in section.
So the
or
121
section
in the
two.
staff notes should be 107. Is that right? Where it says,
It does say 107.
no, on H3, 1H3 on the first page. Current variance application requesting an addition 121,525. That number should be 107. Am I correct? That should be
Oh, yes. I think you are.
107,250. Okay. Gotcha.
Okay, all right. Let's, now that I've kind of thrown a monkey wrench into everything, sorry. Just trying to get the number.
The 121,525 is the total amount being requested between the two variances that's over the 65,000 that the code allows.
I thought it was 186,825.
Different way of
Yeah,
describing.
yeah.
Pardon?
It's just a different way of describing it.
We'll
The
go,
65,000 is the,
Oh,
what's in the
got it.
book.
Okay,
And then if you take
yep,
what they're asking for, that's
Yep.
where she got the 121. But to answer Mr. Phillips' question, the difference from what was previously approved is the
107.
107.
okay.
Everybody's right.
Okay. Okay. So the variance today is for 121,525.
Okay.
107.
Oh, 107. Okay.
Okay. So basically, the comments there are the same as from the last one. The first paragraph of the applicant's narrative statement incorrectly states that the court case is the same because that court case dealt with a divergence and it was in a different zoning classification. And this is a variance in a straight district, a LI, light industrial district. The zoning standard in question during the court case referenced the applicant's narrative, while similar was technically a different section of the zoning resolution. The development in the reference court case was and is located in a planned resident or planned industrial district, while the subject property is located in a light industrial district. The subject application has treated two separate parcels as one. So the parcels will need to be combined into one parcel before submission of a zoning permit for development of the property. If the Board of Zoning Appeals is inclined to approve the request, staff request that it is stated for the record and as part of the motion that such approval only constitutes approval of the specific variance being requested and does not constitute approval of a development plan nor approval of a zoning permit. Compliance with all additional zoning standards must be shown as part of the non-residential zoning permit application process. Such application will need to be approved and the zoning permit issued prior to construction of the proposed buildings. Staff did provide a copy of the variance application to our police, fire, and maintenance departments. the fire marshal did respond, and he had no concerns or comments. And we did send legal notice to the adjacent property owners, and we did place a notification sign on the property, and the legal notice was also advertised in the Delaware Gazette on it was advertised March 10th, so we did not re-advertise because this was continued to a specific date and time at the last meeting.
Oh,
And
okay.
staff did not receive any comments or concerns from residents that I'm aware of.
So let me just see if I understand this. We've gone from a request that we approved back in November of 4.931 acres, plus now we've added another 10 acres. So now it's a total of 15-ish acres.
That was the same in the last application too.
Was it
They-
always 15 acres?
Mhm.
I don't.
They're two separate parcels.
Yes,
So they're gonna have to combine them into one, otherwise they couldn't put the buildings over the property
we
lines.
conditioned that at the time that they were combined? I don't remember
I don't
doing
believe
that.
so
I don't think we did
because
either.
they can't proceed unless they do that, so it's kind of a moot point. They know that they have to combine them into one to be able to proceed.
We do.
Is this hearing premature? Should they be combined when they come before us? No? Yes? Counsel, I don't know if that's, should that be a precondition? Because they're asking for a combined
I don't,
square footage of buildings on
yeah, so the
our two
problem,
separate parcels.
the problem's gonna be when I don't know if a lot combination, do we review that? Are they gonna send that down for our approval to see if it meets zoning or not? The county? It's not uncommon to do it this way.
I
It's
would
not,
think
okay.
that,
It's
I mean,
not
they're gonna want to know that before they purchase the property and move forward, they're gonna wanna know that they have their variances.
it's
So
not
I think it's
uncommon.
very common to do it that way. It's just like a developer coming in and getting zoning before they actually purchase the property, because they don't wanna go through that process and that expense until they know that they have their approvals.
I understand that. Mr. Schaefer, did you have a comment?
I just want to make sure you
Sure.
didn't have it. So basically, yeah, that's what will happen. It's somewhat of a self-regulating issue because when the permit comes in, if they haven't consolidated the lots, they're going to have a whole bunch of things that aren't going to be compliant because the building's going to be across lot lines. We're not going to be able to issue the permit. So they know they've got to do it, and I know I'm not going to be able to issue the permit until they do it. So from my point of view, I don't think it's a bad idea if the board wants to condition it that way, if the applicant's agreeable to that.
We would be
Uh,
fine with that.
But it's basically going to take care of itself, and it's a little bit of a chicken the egg situation, to be honest, because it's which one of these processes do you first? They both have to happen. I'm not
think
sure
we've
it
done
actually,
it
at the end
both.
of the day, it really matters which one goes first.
Yep.
From a zoning compliance thing, consolidating the lots, they're only going to get bigger, so I can't foresee anything from a compliance standpoint that would consolidate the lot. We're basically just erasing a line on
I
a
think we've done it
drawing.
both ways in the past.
Mhm.
And
So
I
it
don't-
would be
and
a
I think
fair-
you're right, I think it's like a chicken and an egg.
Yeah, so I have no
discussion.
concerns with this coming before the lot consolidation, I guess is the short way of statement.
Okay.
Cardinal Self-Storage is in a contingent purchase contract. These are two
Sure.
parcels. They're not ours to combine today, but we will certainly stipulate we will do so
Sure.
as a
I-
condition of approval.
Yeah, I would anticipate, and I understand what staff is saying as far as you want to know you can do it before you complete the purchase. And that, you're not the first one to come before us for something like that either. So it's totally understandable. Did you have anybody have any questions for staff? Or should we go on to the applicant? No?
I'm good.
You're going,
forward,
okay.
yeah.
Paul, I'm good. Jerry? Yeah, okay. Mr. Miller, you're up.
And if it's okay, I'll remain seated so I
Yeah,
can refer to
absolutely.
a few things here. We have a presentation for you this evening, as we did last November. Thank you, Joe and Susan.
Tell me when you want to flip the slides.
let's go ahead and, start with this slide. And so I know you're well familiar with the site. It's a very large site, approximately 15.6 acres. It is zoned today light industrial. While I want to address the neighboring properties, I think you know that this is essentially invisible from Maxtown Road. There is one drive. It is blocked completely by Harris Automotive, Maxtown Medical. It is immediately adjacent to public storage as well as stone's throw away from Westerville North self-storage. There was discussion last November about how this development would be an improvement. It's something of an eyesore, what's there today, and I concur in that observation. If we look at,
It's just Alice Towing is there currently, is that correct?
yes, I believe that's correct, as well as a salvage site. If we look at the next slide, this goes directly to Mr. Chairman's questions earlier. This is what was approved last November. It was variance 2023-14, approved by you all unanimously on November 28th. Members at that time correctly observed this is a challenging site. It's a very large, when you think about it being 15.59 acres, a very large flag lot, no frontage to speak of or visibility on Maxtown. Even in this development plan that we submitted to you, very large portions of the back of the site were vacant but labeled future development. With time to reflect and look at the market, we've decided that time is actually now. There really is no other use for the remainder of the property other than self-storage. There is still market demand. I'm happy to address that with some specifics if it's helpful to the board based on market studies of the immediate Westerville area and market. And certainly efficiencies would be realized if this is approved and then constructed over time cohesively on this site. And I would point out, for what it's worth, I know some neighbors are here tonight, it removes uncertainty about what's going there when in terms of a known entity and a known developer in this community, Cardinal Self Storage. If we look at the next slide, this is the revised plan. It's a a variance of 107,250 square feet from that which is already of record. In other words, what you approved last November was that increase over the 65,000. It's approximately 107,000 square feet above that. That may sound large on its face, but I want to give you some perspective here tonight. The request is very much proportional to this large site, and in fact, no other variances are necessary. It does not exceed the maximum lot coverage. While that sounds like a lot of square footage, it does not exceed the maximum impervious surface standards for the township. And I'll explain in a moment how it's actually completely consistent with the adjacent self-storage uses, both the use itself and the square footage requested. So, and of course, this is a permitted use in the limited industrial district. If we look at the next slide, there are several standards that guide your decision here this evening. That here is the ordinance and the zoning resolution from which we need a variance. It's this 65,000 maximum gross floor area. But it's a little deceptive for this use because no one building is 65,000 square feet, not even close. The largest single actual building is only 20,000 square feet. That's labeled as Storage Building A. And I would also point out, of that 107,000, there it says 121,525, the total amount. And I think even that's a little off, above 65,000 square feet. In fact, of the 107,250 square feet, 65,400 of it is for parking canopies. It is not, I understand why Mr. Schaefer and Ms. Dortch consider it a building, but I don't want you to think that it is some enclosed structure. It's a canopy.
Yeah, just to jump in, as I recall, a substantial, maybe 2/3 of it was just covered storage. The remainder was finished building units.
That is correct, and if it's helpful at some point, we can flip back to the depiction of it. In the next slide, I know many of you, Mr. Christian was not with us that evening, but heard about this court case back in 2016 and 2017. It was discussed last November. I don't want to dwell on it this evening because I think this variance is absolutely warranted on the merits, but it should inform your judgment and control your actions here tonight. In that case, for the immediately neighboring site, the court determined that the establishment of a business on a flag-shaped vacant lot such as this is compatible with surrounding businesses and therefore advances the public interest. The court also found that due to the shape of the lot, travelers on Maxtown would be unlikely to see the larger buildings, and this divergence was consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning resolution.
So the additional square footage you're requesting, though, is covered building space.
It involves parking canopies, the same covered
So it's the same
spaces.
parking, and roughly, and maybe I'm getting ahead of you a little bit.
You're fine.
Roughly how much is in the new request total parking canopies and storage units? As a percentage, 2/3, 1/3?
Over half of the square feet, I can tell you that the parking canopies consume 65,400 total square feet.
Okay.
And
it's-
so if you're asking me how much of the new 107,000 is additional parking canopy, I apologize, I don't have that calculation top of mind.
So.
But if you think of the divergence from
186,
65,000 as approximately 121,000 square feet, well over half of it is parking canopy, 65,400.
Okay.
So,
And as I recall, those are a buffer around the finished storage units, is that?
correct.
Is that
And that is our original plan
And
before.
that's still the plan?
That's still the plan. We have had some dialogue and engagement with the neighbors, the residential neighbors, which I think is positive, and I'm happy to address that, and I think they likely will this evening, and hopefully we can all come to a mutual decision on what's preferred. But you're correct. The plan that we submitted has the parking canopies essentially at the perimeter of the east side of the site, which abuts residential.
Right.
As you know, there's also a substantial setback, 75 feet to impervious surface.
And a berm, as I recall, or am I incorrect on that? I can't remember.
Green space.
Landscape.
Yes, it's all seated, correct, Member Hanson, in green space. We did not, I don't know that it requires a berm, and I'm not sure about the altitude difference, whether that would be required.
See it from Maxtown.
You can't see it at all from Maxtown. There's literally just a driveway that goes hundreds of feet
Probably
back.
drive by there 10
And then
times a
even
day.
after that 75 feet of green space, there's an 8-foot opaque, completely opaque fence. So I submit to you that the court case is controlling authority. What the court ultimately found in that case was that the Board of Trustees' denial of a similar divergence in that case was arbitrary and unreasonable and unsupported by the evidence. But again, if you'll indulge me in the next slide, I'm happy to go through the applicable standards. I believe they're all met here. And so this is what you need to look to this evening at the risk of being repetitive: 30704, 30705, and 30706. I'd like to address them in turn. First is 30704. These are considerations for you for a variance. The first, the variance is not contrary to the public interest. This is something the Court of Common Pleas directly held. That establishment of a business on a flag-shaped vacant lot that is similar to this and is compatible with surrounding businesses advances the public interest. The second, due to special considerations, a literal enforcement of the zoning resolution will result in unnecessary hardship. I submit to you there that this building size is proportional given the size of the site. I mean, this is over, I think, 12 football fields, 12 city blocks. It's deceptively large because you can't see it from Maxtown. So without a variance, much of the property will simply remain undeveloped, which is inconsistent with the zoning resolution and the comp plan for light industrial districts. Due to the shape of the property, there won't be any visibility from Maxtown, and the variance is sought to provide outdoor storage canopies, which we think are an amenity or benefit to surrounding properties and users. If we look at the next slide, continuing through these factors of 30704, this is what I referenced a moment ago. The purpose of the zoning resolution is to ensure compatibility of land uses which are either adjacent or in proximity to each other. All the surrounding uses except that eastern side are light industrial, and frankly, a couple of them are self-storage themselves. I suggest to you it's very compatible. And this is what I was referring to. The comp plan seeks to ensure and control the orderly development of all lands. This instead will take away much of the economic upside of this property if a variance were not given. And the purpose of the light industrial district is to provide for industrial uses that are pleasant is a high standard to apply for industrial uses, but nonetheless, pleasant, safe, and convenient. Couple of points here. First, on the development of all lands, Mr. Hanson made the observation back in November that this is a desirable use versus what is there. It's hard to find any use for a landlocked property with no visibility. So the fact that this can be put to productive use, it does satisfy the objectives of the comp plan. And on the last bullet point there, pleasant, safe, and convenient uses, I would submit to you Cardinal Self Storage has a track record in this township. They developed the public storage next door. They developed Cardinal Self Storage in Westerville across the street down Maxtown Road. This is a good, well-developed product. This is not old rusted buildings on a gravel lot, what some people may think of when they think of self-storage. And for an industrial use, it's very well developed, it's very well maintained. It's not intense like other industrial uses. We understand that certain residential homes are adjacent. I submit to you this is one of the least impactful light industrial uses that exist. It does not generate any traffic of significance nor noise, and so we think it meets that factor.
Just to refresh my memory. 'cause
Sure.
It's been a few months. What are the general hours of operation as far as access hours to
Mhm.
the storage units?
6 a.m. to 10 p.m. It is secure access
Right.
at all times, but you cannot access the site after 10 p.m. The key code will be disabled until the next morning at 6 a.m. The office would be manned and staffed from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And so that model has worked very well in terms of its proximity to residential to not be disruptive, not generate noise at night. In fact, there's no one on site, and it's a totally secure facility after hours. If we look again at 307, the next slide is 30705. You're to look at whether special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved. We've talked about the size of the site. We've talked about the irregular shape and location of the property, and how the variance is sought, at least in part, to provide these outdoor canopies. Here's something I want to stress. I think I've said a couple times already that the proposed square footage is very proportional to the site. It's in fact less than some of Cardinal Self Storage's immediate neighbors enjoy. Public storage, I'm going to throw out more numbers, but I'll get them correct. Public storage is a site of 6.127 acres with 90,400 square feet of storage units on it. On this site, 15.59 acres, that would equate to the equivalent of 230,021 square feet. So that's well more intense than what we're requesting. That informs my judgment of why I keep saying we think this square footage is proportional. So too, Westerville North Self-Storage, you'll recall that's immediately to the north and the east. That is 73,000 square feet on 6.0 acres. That equates, if it were on 15.59 acres, to 189,678 square feet. So on a ratio basis, both of those are greater than what is requested here. And then obviously there are already other uses well in excess of 65,000 square feet in the immediate vicinity, the Kroger, the Home Depot. And so we do believe a literal interpretation of the zoning resolution would deprive Cardinal Self-Storage of rights enjoyed by other property owners in the area. If we look at the next slide, these special circumstances do not result from the actions of the owner or the applicant. The size, shape, and location are not the result of any owner or applicant's actions. It's a challenging flag-shaped lot, very large in size, and this may be, as I've said, the only use to which the property can be adapted. As an aside, I was here on other business when the township long ago enacted that 65,000 square foot limitation. My recollection is Mr. Schaefer was too. It was solely and only enacted because of big box stores. It had nothing to do with a productive or low intensity use of land like this. Mm-hmm.
November, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
And I apologize, I did not pull the minutes or the records. I'm going from recollection when the room was set up differently.
several zoning
That's a long-
inspectors before.
That's a long time ago,
Yes,
but that's not an inaccurate statement.
yes, right, yes. And like I said, I recall that we had that discussion, if I'm not mistaken, in November as well.
And so if we look at the next slide, continuing through the factors on 30705, again, I've addressed how the variance will conform to the comprehensive plan and the spirit and intent of the zoning resolution. I believe that the requested variance is the minimum variance to allow for development of the whole site. You saw that in November when things were left as future development. We were going to be back in some way, shape, or form. And I submit to you that granting this variance for reasons I've described will not adversely affect people in the vicinity. The residential already does have self-storage to the north, and self-storage is already an approved use for this site, as well as Cardinal Self-Storage's track record of an attractive, unobtrusive product. So the last,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Go ahead, Joe.
If we look at the next slide, the last section to be applied is 30706. The property in question will not yield a reasonable return. Many of these things I've touched upon. It's already zoned for self-storage. It's directly adjacent to self-storage. This is what's necessary to actually develop the entire parcel. If we look at the next factor, the variance is not substantial given the development plan and size of the property. Here's where I would refer to those other developments, that it's less substantial on a pure acre basis than either of the adjacent self-storage facilities, as well as none of these buildings approach anywhere close to 65,000 square feet. And again, the idea that well over half of the new square footage is not for enclosed buildings, but instead for these parking canopies. The next slide, the character of the neighborhood will not be altered, nor will adjoining
Here's my question, is what we approved in November is identical in relation to the neighbors as today? Is the plan from November identical in relation to the neighbors?
as it relates to that eastern side of the
Correct,
property.
That eastern end of the property.
Here's where I need my reading glasses, but I do have an answer for you on that. There was still the outdoor parking spaces along the eastern perimeter,
Right.
and there was a canopy on the portion that was intended to be developed. But you'll recall
Oh, go ahead.
the northern portion of this property did not have an additional parking canopy on it. So that would be the difference that I would point
The
out to
only
you.
difference between now and then is an additional parking canopy as it relates to the residents.
That is correct. If we went back to slide 3, and I don't mean to make you scroll a whole ton, but that's what
Yeah,
shows the approved plan.
Yeah, I think
And if I may
Yeah,
get up,
sure.
so here we had the originally approved plan. I'll keep my voice up for the recording and for the people in the audience. Parking all along
Right.
the developed portion of the eastern border,
Okay.
and a parking canopy here, not yet on Lot B.
Uh-huh.
Edge of pavement was here. If we scroll to the next slide,
So you've added one or two canopies?
One.
Okay,
and this remains parking canopy A,
okay.
and then now there is a
And
parking
it's-
canopy B, and the outdoor storage spaces are extended.
And B is the same proximity to the residence as A is? In other words, this.
Yes, the property line takes a jog,
Yes, I see that.
but it's still 75
Okay.
feet
The
to
proximity
the edge of
remains
pavement,
the same.
additional 25 feet to the canopy.
Okay.
And so, sorry, we are nearing the end, so if you go to the 15th slide, if that's possible, the remaining factors on 307.06. Yes, exactly. We do believe that the character of the neighborhood will not be altered, frankly, for a lot of those reasons you just asked about, Mr. Chair. And then if we turn to the next slide, D, E, and F. The variance will not adversely affect governmental services. You've seen in the staff report, police, fire, all given a chance to comment. No concerns, no objections. The property owner, we do believe, reasonably expected to receive the same treatment as neighboring businesses. And this variance is necessary to develop the entirety of the property. So I think I've reached the final slide then with factor G, and it's already been addressed at length. So this is the plan we want. This is the plan we submitted. We have engaged, Cardinal has, with neighboring property owner Todd Eckert, who's here this evening. Certainly, I know he has some concerns. We're happy to talk those through and see what the board's pleasure is as far as if there are any modifications the board needs to see to the plan.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I have a question for staff.
Oh, go ahead.
What is the reasoning behind considering all buildings when we're factoring in the size of the building? Why are we, as there are multiple buildings, multiple canopies, why are we calling that one single unit 186,835 square feet? Is it just total property coverage that's the issue?
It's a roof structure, a solid roof structure, and if you read the definition, which is in the zoning resolution, Article 4, the building is any structure having a roof supported by poles, columns, or walls, which is designated for shelter, support, or enclosure of persons, animals, crops, materials, property of any kind. And I think that, I mean, that's been the definition.
Go ahead, Pete.
I know.
Yeah, I think your question is, do we look at the total amount of the building, square footage of the buildings that exist on the parcel? And yes, so if you add up the buildings and they're over the 65,000 square foot, that's why they need a variance.
Okay, so
I
them
understand your
being
question. It
connected
doesn't
is
matter, yeah. I think from our interpretation, or, staff's interpretation of the code is that even though each individual building may be less than 65,000 square foot, we look at everything.
And
I
I think the thought process behind that is, through the years, is that when it has a solid roof, then you can wall it in at any time, and then it's a building. By
I think,
by your definition.
Mr. Christian, if I may, just going from the language of the ordinance, it says that you can't have, no building shall exceed 65,000 square feet, but then the code goes on in 1505.05 to say it applies to a commonly controlled business operation, and a commonly controlled business operation shall not exceed usage of 65,000 square feet within one or more buildings. I don't like it, I disagree with it, but that's the reason why staff aggregates everything. Again, I think the board, of my recollection, for what it's worth, the Board of Trustees at the time was concerned about people gaming the system and saying, well, we've got one building here and it may have a shared wall with the next building, but no one building exceeds 65,000 square feet to build inline retail.
So technically speaking, if these lots were continue to be separate lots, you could build almost everything you want and operate them as separate businesses and no one could say anything.
Almost.
I don't know if he'd be able to meet the other requirements of the code. That may be probably
But this particular thing.
but theoretically, you're probably right. But again, I think they would probably run into other,
Yeah, I think they'd have a lot
Variances.
of other things that they couldn't comply with
Okay.
if you kept the properties as they were now.
But I think it's a reason why this variance is not substantial.
so basically, Mr. Christian, to go back to your question, that's the way staff interprets the code, that you
Okay.
combine them all.
Thank you.
Question for staff and council. We will get to, in Duncan versus Minifield, the substantiality of the variance. And I simply took the 107,250 square feet, and subtracted the 65,000, came up with 42,250. And I took that as a percentage of 65,000. Is that the correct way to do it? It shows a 65% variance. Is that,
Yeah, I mean, I think,
that
yeah,
the correct way to do it?
yeah. So, I mean, basically, the requested variance, It's the percentage of what they're requesting the deviation from.
Okay,
So if you, to simple math, if you have a 100-foot setback and they want to encroach 50 feet, then that's a 50% variance.
okay.
But again, if it's helpful for your consideration, Mr. Phillips, I submit to you when you have a site that's approximately 15.6 acres and say it can only have 65,000 square feet on it, lest, and you can only exceed that by a very small percentage, you're taking away about, most of the economic value of that property. I mean, I submit to you that it is not a substantial variance because of the size of the property, and frankly, because it's in line and less than the adjacent self-storage uses on a per acre basis today.
But you're asking us to take into consideration a parameter that we can't change.
Well-
Business resolution say 65,000. It doesn't say if.
Well, I think-
Then I would
economic
just
value-
simply say they are factors to be weighed, and certainly the
That's correct.
economic hardship greatly outweighs the substantial nature of the variance.
Right, and that's just a factor to consider. You guys know that. That's just one factor.
And I want to jump in because this is exactly the argument that we heard in November when it was, we were considering 15 acres, but we were only considering, 78,000 or 107,000 or whatever the number was. And here we are again. What has changed from then until now, or was this the original plan to come back?
It was the original plan to come back. That's why it was labeled future development. But after taking a look at what could possibly go in the rear of a property that has no frontage, little access to begin with, it was determined self-storage was the only use. And likewise, the market, the Westerville market, this may surprise you given the adjacent uses, is still underserved. There is 5 square feet per capita of self-storage in the Westerville market area, approximately 3-mile radius around this site. The industry norm is over 7 square feet per capita. Some markets enjoy very good occupancy rates at 8 to 10 square feet per capita. So, and just down the street at Westerville Cardinal Self-Storage, certain types of units, 10 by 20s, for instance, and 2 others, you can't get them. They're all booked. And so I didn't come to you last November thinking, and then I'm going to come back 6 months later. In fact, it probably would have been better to have this more fulsome discussion at the time, but looking at, as I mentioned, the efficiencies of construction, the lack of impact to the neighborhood, as well as the certainty it provides to the neighborhood to the east, we are back here in relatively short order saying this is what we would like to do.
Okay, let's hear public comment. Anyone? Come on up, name and address, sir.
My name is Todd Eckert. I live at 7042 Jean Court, adjacent to the property under discussion. Towards the north side, second property from the end. Yep, right there. Yep. I didn't realize I was late to the party here. This has been going on since November. Susan, somehow I missed your mailing. I apologize for that. I am here to represent multiple of the neighbors. So when I realized that this was coming in, I reached out to some of the neighbors to notify them about some concerns that we had on the property. And obviously, I'm here to make sure that I maintain property value. And what we put back there is something that's going to maintain a quiet and best as possible visually appealing environment. So we're concerned looking at the plan of what's going to end up back there. I also recognize that this is a request for a variance to the maximum square footage requirement, not to what I am planning to address, but I'm hoping that the board will take into account my comments here. So the original plan that we saw in the submission from Mr. Berkeley Ellis showed that structural layout. So for me, that's the original plan because I didn't see the November plan at the time. And the concern we really had around that plan is you have the parking canopies A and B, you have outdoor storage, and you have a parking area that is adjacent to the east side of the property, which is our backyards. The concern is an 8-foot fence that's opaque isn't really going to shield noise that's coming out of the lot for people coming in and out, moving their vehicles, having conversations. We would have noise in our backyard. View from the second floor of our homes would be of the parking canopy. And we didn't really believe that this was going to keep the character of the neighborhood. I think I agree, it's going to, the character of the adjacent lot that has the public storage. But the neighborhood would change because we would have a lot of activity back there that we don't have today. I didn't just come to the public hearing with complaints, so I called Mr. Ellis last Thursday and talked to him about the concerns that we had, and actually made a proposal that we felt would be more suited to keeping the essential character of the neighborhood. The layout change was relatively simple, we believe. It was really to move the back of a building, at the time one of the storage units, up against the fence. So that might bring some other issues in there, but the idea was to have a solid structure that shields us from the activity inside the public storage area. It would shield noise. It would shield some exhaust that might be coming from RVs being stored under the canopies that may be idling for some period of time. We've got a bit of that experience with RKE towards the north of our properties. It looks like that may be a more suitable layout. And talking to Mr. Miller tonight, we had a little discussion about maybe not moving one of the storage buildings, but moving one of the back of the parking canopies up towards the fence. That would give a nice solid structure that would actually shield us from seeing the activity inside. Probably shield us from some of the trash that normally blows across the field from Home Depot and Kroger. And generally, I think maybe more suitable than just an 8-foot opaque fence. And we have a similar situation with Westerville North, that's directly north of our Jean Court. I'm not against the installation of the storage units. Honestly, the uncertainty that was mentioned, I think it helps solve that issue. But we would like to have a little bit more shielding. The 75-foot of green grass, I would hope would eventually grow up into something more to further block the storage area and would help preserve the values of our homes and the peacefulness that we have back there today. And so in conclusion, I hope that the zoning board will take into consideration my comments when you guys are voting on the requested variance.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for your participation. Mr. Miller, we talked last in November about shielding and the fence and the, I think there was a tree line that was proposed, if I'm not mistaken. I'm like you, I didn't go back and look at the record.
I
from
did look
last
at the
time.
minutes.
I did not, so you're ahead of me.
All right.
Can you enlighten me on, or us, the board, on that?
I don't want to misspeak because I'm going from memory, and I
I'm
do have the
glad you
minutes here
didn't.
somewhere before me, but yes, here they are. I remember there was discussion about the substantial buffer,
I do too.
and that it would be green and that it would be grass. If Susan or Joe have a specific memory of screening, I'm looking at the board's discussion and findings of
Joe,
fact.
were you here that night for that? I can't remember.
I wasn't here for that one, so I don't recall.
Okay.
We obviously would hold them to whatever the zoning resolution requirements are. You know, I did a review of this against the zoning code back in the fall when this was all sort of starting up, and I typed them up a numerous point list of here's all the things you're gonna still have to comply with, even if you get
Sure.
this variance approved. And I know screening and setbacks and all of that
But
were
we-
part of it.
And we as a board, we don't enforce the zoning code, and we don't typically demand changes to proposed plans.
No, but you certainly, if there's an agreeable
Right.
condition
Well, of course.
with the applicant, you certainly could levy that as a condition.
There were five conditions of
Okay.
approval.
Okay.
They mostly were tied to the zoning code, that that construction would begin within the time period or the variance would lapse. There was no condition as it relates to specific landscaping or screening.
Probably just compliance with the zoning code, right, would be my opinion. Let me get this. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this application? Okay, hearing none, we'll conclude public comment, and then, do we have anything for staff, or?
Councils, anything that you think?
No, I'm just trying to figure out exact terms of the change.
Mr. Griggs, I'm happy to.
I think that would be beneficial
I'm happy to
understand.
address that and kind of talk
Represent-
through
yeah,
what
your
the,
client.
what the board's pleasure would be. This is what we filed on. This was our conceived site plan. Mr. Eckert, on behalf of himself, and he says on behalf of some of his neighbors, at least one of whom is with him here tonight, reached out to a representative of my client, Burke Ellis, who had an irreconcilable conflict. He apologizes that he couldn't be here tonight, but it was an incredibly cordial conversation. And what Mr. Eckert relayed that was somewhat misunderstood by my client, but I understand it now, having had interaction with Mr. Eckert tonight. He was proposing, if I may get up.
Sure.
And Mr. Eckert, stop me if I misspeak again, I'll raise my voice. We obviously have outdoor storage parking spaces here along the eastern border. There is an 8-foot fence. What Mr. Eckert was asking for was that essentially a storage building be put up against the fence line.
Right, that's what I heard.
To
too.
provide a more solid buffer beyond just the fence. The problem with that is these storage buildings are two-sided. There's units on each side, and so to not have traffic flow around it is problematic. What I did discuss with Mr. Eckert very shortly before the meeting began, and both of my client representatives had irreconcilable conflicts. So if you saw me texting, it was about this matter. And what I discussed with Mr. Eckert is, if it's the board's pleasure versus this, we wouldn't put storage buildings up against the fence line, but we would propose enclosed parking structures, three-sided, wall, wall, wall.
Oh,
And put these back here, would provide a significant solid buffer even beyond the fence to the neighborhood. Now, if we were to put them up against the fence line, I assume staff would say, well, now you need a building setback variance.
potentially.
But they could be put, within the building setback and enclosed in that way that I'm describing. I understand that's some changes on the fly, but I meant what I said. Cardinal seeks to be a good neighbor, and they would be willing to do this if the board preferred that.
Well, let me ask you this. What if, and I'm just throwing this is another one, change on the
We're
fly.
gonna start texting.
So, yeah, exactly. Oh, I thought you were ordering dinner for everybody. Is moving your A and B canopies up to the upper right-hand corner. Is that feasible? Reconfiguring, there,
No, I'm with you.
yeah, reconfiguring these two up in here and then moving these down there. I don't know if that's feasible, and I don't do that.
Well, here's what my client misconstrued. I did come with a revised site plan,
Oh, you did?
but we did misconstrue what Mr. Eckert was asking. And I want to make sure he gets a copy of this as well. I showed it to him before the meeting began. After this conversation with Mr. Ellis last week, we had this revised plan prepared, which let me hand it out before.
Yeah.
When my client heard that the neighbors may be interested in
Ah,
having storage buildings in closer proximity to their property than the parking canopies, this is essentially the identical plan,
with
but
them
with parking
switched.
canopy A and storage building A flipped, and storage building B and parking canopy B.
Those are the same.
Oh, this is from the earlier presentation, Joe. This is why we asked as the original plan, but don't go to it, because this is the revised plan, sorry. Yeah, it's just gonna confuse folks. This depicts what I just handed out to you, but this is revised based upon, what we thought the neighbors' concerns to be, putting storage closer to the property than parking canopies. Mr. Eckert said tonight, well, I'd really prefer buildings up along the fence line, that block.
It'll
So,
still have the noise that he was concerned about.
that it would hopefully
With the traffic
ameliorate
and-
concerns about noise. Now, I've told you before about why I believe this is a low-intense use and does not generate noise, but I want to be respectful of the
Well,
neighbors'
I
concerns.
think to a certain extent it probably does. And I agree with you. The difficulty becomes with this, and this property has historically, as long as I've been engaged with the township, been a situation. And right now, the use of the property, and I'm not advocating for anybody, I'm making a comment, is that this property has been an eyesore since, I've been in the township 25 years, and I think it's been an eyesore for at least 25 years. While on the one hand, I'm not wild about having more public storage, I'm surprised that there is less than needed public storage here. On the other hand, the only way I can summarize is that there's a lot worse because of the zoning. It's light industrial. It could be a lot worse. I've heard things like mid-rise hotels. I've heard restaurants. I've heard all sorts of proposed uses for this property, putting Frost Road, connecting it back to Maxtown. I've heard all sorts of uses over the years for this. And I think that it's important to accommodate the neighbors, but I think it's important to remember that this is it's zoned light industrial, and something much more intense could be on this property. Just my opinion, for what it's worth. So, moving on. What's the board want to do? Do you want to move into Duncan versus Middlefield? Do you want to consider the alternate plan? The plan is proposed. I'm open to suggestion here.
I think
Mr.
it's,
Chairman, I'd like to ask one question of Mr. Griggs, I
Sure.
guess. The common pleas case,
Mhm.
any impact on what we're doing today? Do you feel there's any impact that we as a board should consider?
Yeah, so obviously it's a different court case and it dealt with a planned district. From my perspective, it's not controlling, but what I take from Mr. Miller is that the analysis that was provided by the court bears some potential impact. I mean, so those factors are somewhat similar, and I think what he's saying is a court may look at the same analysis in a variance request.
Would you agree with that?
I don't disagree with some of them.
Okay.
You know, yeah, so, you know, if you have any more questions, it'd probably be better if you wanted to go into private deliberations, if you want to, but I don't think they're controlling, but I think the analysis that the court performed in that case is helpful to you, because I think they would perform a very similar analysis here.
What? Okay, we don't have any more public comment. We've heard the application.
I mean, to me, the question, I think, is, I think you have a concern from the neighbors.
Sure.
And, they're the ones that are mostly impacted. And is there a way to have a plan that alleviates those impacts? And
Right.
maybe it's that type of discussion that needs to happen.
Maybe this is the first time I've ever done this, and I've been on the board a while. and the first time I've ever suggested this, but I'm somewhat inclined in going into private deliberations on this application. What do you guys think? Or are you comfortable with just doing discussion and calling the vote? What would you like to do?
I think we should go into private
That's
deliberations.
what I
I
think.
think we really should.
That's what I.
Make it
think
as brief as
is
possible,
with-
but I do.
Right,
think we
I'm
should.
not talking about a long protracted conversation about it, but I'm not thinking, I think that it is
Thoughts?
merited. Jared?
Yeah, so you would want to make a motion to recess into
will.
private deliberations?
Yeah.
Very
Um,
briefly,
yes.
and I don't intend to lobby or argue for anything, but I'd like to explain to you the application, that plan, and what I discussed with the neighbors, so you understand fully the range of options available to you. What we applied on, and I apologize if this was mistaken, is storage building A, storage, no, this is what we applied on the Canopy.
This is the drawing from the application.
Not sure why I thought this was wrong. Oh, you switched it, Joe. Thank you. So this is the application. The revised plan I just handed out flips these two, with storage building closer to the neighbors, but maintains two-way circulation because there's units on both sides. What I discussed with Mr. Eckert is, okay, he would like something along the fence line, or perhaps if you want to maintain the 25-foot building setback, then Cardinal would be okay with this too. We could enclose the two canopies on three sides, leave them open in the front for pull-ins of boats and RVs, and locate them perhaps along the building setback, and relocate these parking spaces internal to the site. So original application, flipped building and canopy, or enclosing the parking canopies and putting them in closer proximity to the neighbor.
And I'd kind of like to see that plan if I'm gonna. All right, I'm gonna make a motion that we go into private deliberations on this application. Brief deliberations.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're gonna go off at 8:10. Yeah, it's this one. Okay, and we're back at 8:27. Okay, following discussion from the board, Mr. Phillips, do you wish to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we continue today's hearing to next month to give the applicant the opportunity to present us with a final site plan that we will condition the construction being pursuant to that site plan, and to encourage you and Mr. Eckert and the other neighbors to discuss prior to next month's hearing what landscaping or other conditions the homeowners would like to see consistent with the applicant's ability to satisfy those requests.
And consistent with the zoning code? I
And
apologize.
consistent with the zoning code, yes.
Okay,
Motion to continue the public hearing to, when's the next month?
June 25th.
June
June
25th.
25th.
At this location at 7 p.m.
PM at this location, yes.
and I will second that motion. Discussion?
I guess,
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
I guess we just need to know the date of when you want the any
Oh,
revised materials. Technically, today was the deadline for next month, but you can set whatever date you want for the revisions.
Is, Mr. Miller, is June 15th acceptable? I
Yes.
don't know if that's a weekday or not, I'm just pulling it out of the air. So
Yes, that is acceptable.
let me look and see what the.
And is this, to be obtuse, I just want to make
Then
sure
it
I
would
do
be
the right thing.
14th. Oh, no, how about, let's make it the Monday, what would that be, 17th? Yeah, Monday, the 17th, okay, Mr. Miller?
Yes, and this is, I know you've seen a couple different plans tonight.
Sure.
But the idea is revise the site plan in accordance with some of what Mr. Eckert wanted and what I proposed in terms of a three-strided
We
parking
want to
structure.
see, right, we want to see what you're going to do, rather than give you a, well, gee, we're going to maybe do this, that, or the other thing, which is actually what we require of all applicants, so, rather than do it on the.
Sure, but as opposed to what you already have before you,
Correct.
come up with this plan as described tonight.
Correct.
But not requesting an additional variance.
Right. That's when I
Well,
say,
I guess that comment means we prefer you stay at the 100-foot setback line.
within the code,
Perfect
within the
direction.
code.
That's all I needed. That's right.
Within the requirements of the code, aside from the coverage.
That's really helpful, thank you.
Okay,
Call the question?
all right, call the question. Mr. Christian,
Yes.
Mr. Hanson,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Miller. And again, to the audience, thank you for your time tonight. Yeah, I know this has been a long hearing, and we'll draw, and the hearing's concluded at 8:30 PM.
Thank you once again.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate your
Miller,
time.
for your patience, your time.
See ya.
I'm gonna keep, and thank you, Mr. Greggs, for coming out tonight. I guess we'll be seeing you next month. Don't make any vacation plans. Now, if I still have my meeting script, which I think I just put down here. Give me just 1 minute, please. Oh, no.
Find the rest of mine, too.
Well. I bet if I hadn't lost my script. Can I borrow your meeting script?
Here, May 28th.
I'll find mine eventually. Okay.
I lost my staff report.
I don't know where the thing went. That application. Oh, there it is. Thank you. Okay. And we'll open hearing number 2 at 8:32 PM. This is, I'll read the legal notice into the record. First, let me swear everybody in that wishes to appear on case 2024-05. Let's see, It's a rear setback variance for 5058 Naya Court in Galena, 43021. If everyone that wishes to speak on this matter, please stand and raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you. Be seated. Chris and Jean Bolin requesting approval of a variance to allow a porch addition to encroach into the required 40-foot rear setback at 5058 Naya Court, Galena, Ohio, 43021, Lot 7057 in the Walnut Grove Estates subdivision, currently zoned planned residential, PRD, and this is BZA case 2024-05. The legal notice for this hearing was printed and published May 15th, 2024 in the Delaware Gazette and posted at the Genoa Township Hall on May 8th, 2024. An attempt to mail notice of this hearing to property owners contiguous to and across the street from the subject property was also made. Entered into evidence are exhibits A through D, which is the legal notice, the sign-in sheet, the application, and the staff report. And Susan, if you would like to give us the staff report.
Thank you, Mark. So this subject property is located in the Walnut Grove subdivision, Section 1, and that plat was recorded in October of 2004. On May 18th, 2005, zoning permit 2005280 was issued for the construction of the residence on the subject property. Staff did not find any additional permits. On February 23rd, 2024, a residential improvement application was submitted to the township for construction of an addition on the subject property. On March 5th of 2024, staff issued a denial of the request because the proposed addition encroached into the required 40-foot rear setback for the Walnut Grove subdivision. And you guys were all provided a copy of that as part of the applicant's application submittal. After corresponding between staff and the contractor, the property owners decided to request the variance, and we received the variance application on April 14th, 2024. They're requesting a 30-foot setback instead of the 40-foot that's required in the final development plan. And section 909.01B sets the minimum yard standards. And it's per the Walnut Grove final development plan, which you received a copy of, page 6, and that states that the rear yards in Walnut Grove will be 40 foot. So the applications stated that the proposed change will be an improvement to the property value and use. It won't affect any governmental services. They did receive HOA approval, and they did include that as part of their application process. They did show some photos and a floor plan of the addition and an elevation of the project. And currently, they have a patio that encroaches into that 40-foot setback, but the code does allow for anything that's like an unroofed patio or deck to encroach into the rear setback by 10 feet. So their patio is more than likely compliant But when they went to put on the screen porch addition, then there's an issue encroaching into that required 40-foot setback. We sent copies of the application to police, fire, and maintenance. The fire marshal had no comments or concerns. The legal notice was published in the Delaware Gazette on May 15th. Copies were sent to the adjacent property owners, and a notification sign was placed on the subject property on May 14th. To date, we did not receive any phone calls or questions about the application.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Oh, Ms. Hughes joined us. Anyone have any questions for staff? No?
You may not know this off the top of your head, but who owns the parcel behind them? Kind of the shape of it makes me think it's the HOA. that owns it. Okay.
Let's hear from the applicant.
Okay, let me walk you through this real quick. You know, Jeff, this is kind of the plot for the lot and the location of the variance that we're asking for. The next one should be the HOA approval for Walnut Grove Estates. The next is the neighbors, and I've talked to both the neighbors, and both of them want to have a kind of a party once we get it done. But that's beside the point. Can you turn that by chance? This is just a picture of the backyard to give you some idea of what it's like back there. It's totally wooded, which is good, but it's also part of the reason we're asking to cover it, because of the heavy tree canopies is constantly just pouring onto the deck, the current deck that's there. See the next one and see what it shows. That's the area that we're talking about, but that doesn't tell the whole story. The next couple pictures will. It's just that one corner and the post, that's the rendering for the proposed project. Covered, the next one I think will start telling the story. The cover is going on the pavers. The cover will actually go over top and bring to floor level and cover about 60% of the pavers. All the landscaping you see there will remain, and the steps go away. We're filling that in and taking landscaping all the way around the proposed project. You know, we're bringing it up to floor level. We've got elderly parents that come and visit, which becomes an issue. This is all, you know, the maintenance-free lumber, the Trex lumber. We didn't see this picture, which is the kind of a satellite view of the neighbors. None of the neighbors can even see this location. And there's nothing behind us either. Yeah, that one there. As you see, you can see the little red box in there where I kind of tried to draw it right there, where I tried to draw in where the deck is at. So from the neighbors, they wouldn't have, it wouldn't impact them. And then if, Jeff, we get back to the back one again. Again, this is the area, and then you're going to have to forgive me for the next one. This is a very rough sketch of what it will look like.
Now, are you going to come out even with the enclosed porch, or are you going to go out? a
It
little
comes
beyond
out
it?
just a hair farther because because of the drainage, where we got to pull the drainage. The current grill area goes away. It gets demolished, and we take the landscaping that's closest to you, that's elevated about 4.5 feet, all the way around to the other side of the develop, or the project.
Okay. And you're gonna come out basically where the, oh, okay, where the house bumps out there.
Yeah, about halfway between the window and the corner there on the, by the door. And then, again, just to create some drainage on the other end, we're gonna come out just beyond the current sunroom in there.
Okay.
The only thing it's out is that one post.
Oh, yeah.
The one closest to us there. If it, and we tried different things. We tried to change the shape of the room, which just destroyed it. We considered a gazebo. Gazebos create us a problem because now you've got the pitch of the gazebo roof pushing water back to the house
Okay.
and the water coming off of the house.
Yeah.
It just, we didn't know what was gonna happen. It just, we tried everything.
The
and-
reason I ask
Yes.
is because setback, it encroaches approximately 6 to 8 feet. Will we generally try and narrow that down to a number certain? Or do you not know yet? Do you have a proposed plan yet?
Well, the reason we did this is Susan actually did a calculation of what we thought would be inside, what would work for a variance. That sheet right there. And,
So also, part of the issue is our lot line, the actual lot post is out in those trees. I mean, it's heavily wooded back there, right? So we had not gone and asked our contractor to go out and find that lot spot in order to make the dimension. We were using, the plot plan that we had from the deed of the house.
Okay, sure. Well,
So
that makes
that's
sense.
why we're saying approximate,
Nobody's-
because it will be difficult to go find that there
Right,
somewhere.
nobody's asking you to go out and look for it. Because I wouldn't either. But, okay, so we're safe if we say 8 feet then?
Yeah, according
be.
to, yes, according to what the contractor and what Susan has told us.
Okay, so if we said 8 feet encroachment,
Yeah, look, this one looks like 30 on here. I would feel comfortable with 10.
Yeah,
10
10
is
is
what I
what we asked.
oh, is that what you asked for?
10 is what
was
we
10?
asked
'Cause it's,
for.
I'm looking at the staff report, so.
Yeah, 10 is what we asked for.
So you're looking actually for 10. Okay. Okay. Anybody else for the applicant? Anything?
given the last project, I feel like we need to up our game a little bit.
We can make this.
186,000 square foot building.
Don't look for trouble that's not coming your way. Okay. All right, no questions for the applicant? Anybody want to do the Duncan versus Middlefield? Oh, thank you. Public comment, anyone? No public comment.
All right then.
That's fair, though, thank you.
Following the script.
No, well, somebody ought to.
I'll tackle it if you
Yeah,
want.
sure, go ahead,
Okay.
Mark. Thank you.
All right, the board reviewed section 307.06 of the zoning resolution reflecting Duncan v. Middlefield as it pertains to the area variance requested from section 909.01 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution and the Walnut Grove final development plan to allow for a porch addition to encroach into a rear setback in a planned residential, which is a PRD zoning district as follows. A, the property in question would yield a substantial return, and there can be a beneficial use of the property without the variance. Now, property's developed and it's already in use, so there
Sure.
can be a beneficial use of the property, but not to the extent that the applicants
Right,
would like to put the porch and roof in.
I would agree.
B, the variance, I would say is substantial because 10 feet into 40 feet is 25%.
Right.
And I would suggest that that is substantial. But as council pointed out in the earlier hearing. That's only one of many factors that we will consider tonight. C, the essential character of the neighborhood would not be substantially altered, and the adjoining properties would not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. The applicant has indicated that they spoke with several of the neighbors, and they're in agreement with this project. And secondly, they can't see it.
That doesn't affect
From their
anybody,
property.
it looks like.
Right, right. Let's see, and further, they have sought and received HOA approval for the project. D, the variance would not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. Police and fire have been notified, and they have no comments. E, the property owner did purchase the property with knowledge of the zoning restriction. And we've always taken that position, that it's a matter of public knowledge and you knew or should have known about it. F, the property owner's predicament cannot be feasibly obviated through a method other than the variance. In order to put the porch and the roof up, you need the variance. G, the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice would be done by granting the variance. Again, the substantial justice is to allow you to have the porch and the roof. I think that's all for those factors. Then,
I,
do you want, go ahead.
I do have a quick question.
Sure.
The dimension, what are the dimensions of the porch, of the proposed porch, do you know? Because you may have it in here, but I don't see it.
It is, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's 15.6 by 25.
25 is the width.
Is the
and
width,
15.
yes.
Okay. Because what made me think of this is, could your predicament be obviated by moving it back? But if it's only a 10-foot, if you're going out 10 feet, if it's only 15 feet, that leaves you with no porch.
Right. It cuts it away, yeah.
That's, I just want to clarify that point. Okey-doke. Do you want to make a motion on that?
Sure,
Mr.
I'll
Alphonse?
move that we approve the application for the variance. And we start by incorporating the exhibits, which I think are A through D, which includes the applicant's packet with the pictures that we were provided today, as well as the board's findings pertaining to the review of section 307.06 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution into evidence, and to approve the requested variance from section 909.01 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution and the Walnut Grove final development plan for BZA case 2024-05. That application was received April 12, 2024, to allow for a porch to extend 10 feet into the 40-foot rear setback on property known as 7057 in Walnut Grove Estates, property address 5058 Naya Court, Galena, Ohio 43021, currently zoned Planned Residential District PRD. This motion is based upon the following findings of fact pursuant to section 307.04 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution, that such variance or modification will not be contrary to the public interest because, once again, none of the neighbors will see it, and police and fire and so forth have already indicated by no response that they have no objections to it. That owing to special conditions, a literal enforcement of this zoning resolution will result in an unnecessary hardship because you won't get the porch. That the approval of such variance or modification thereof is consistent with the spirit of the zoning resolution, and substantial justice shall be done thereby because, again, you would be allowed to develop the porch and enjoy the patio to the extent that you hope to do it by having that porch. Approval of the subject variance is subject to the owner's agreement to the following conditions. Number one, all required permits, zoning or otherwise, be obtained. Number two, pursuant to section 307.11 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution, the approved variance shall lapse, expire, and be null and void ab initio beginning. If required zoning permits are not obtained within 1 year of this motion of approval, so you've got to get underway within a year. Number 3, extensions to this variance may be requested pursuant to sections 307.11A and B of the Genoa Township zoning resolution, as may be amended. Again, if you need time, then come to the Township Hall here and make application. Number 4, the Board of Zoning Appeals does grant the Genoa Township Zoning Inspector authority to extend this variance at their discretion, subject to the deadlines established within section 307.11A of the Genoa Township zoning resolution, as may be amended. I don't believe we have any other conditions on this one? No. Okay.
I'll second. Mr. Hanson seconds. Any discussion? Any further? Nope.
Call a vote?
Call a vote. Mr. Christian? Yes. Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Ms. Yu?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion's carried. Good luck with your porch. Let us know when the barbecue is. No. All right, and the hearing is concluded at 8:50. Yeah. Thanks. 8:53. It's been a long night. All right. And again, thanks for your patience. All right. Okay, final hearing of the night. Yeah, you didn't think we'd get here, did you? All right. Okay. Final hearing of the night is a public hearing on a conditional use permit. And we're calling it to order at 8:55. I'll read the legal notice into the record. Anthony Lacko requesting approval of a conditional use to allow the construction of an accessory building at 4986 Hawthorne Valley Drive, parcel number 317-322-02047-000. Currently zoned suburban residential, that's SR, and this is BZA case 2024-06. All those that wish to speak on this application, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, be seated, thank you. Oh, yeah, if you want to come up to the table. We don't charge extra to get sworn in, just so you understand. Okay, okay. Anthony Lacko requesting approval of a conditional use to allow the construction of an accessory building at 4986 Hawthorne Valley Drive, parcel number 317-322-02047-000, currently zoned suburban residential. The legal notice for the hearing was printed and published on May 15th, 2024 in the Delaware Gazette and posted at the Genoa Township Hall on May 8th, 2024. An attempt to mail notice of this hearing to property owners contiguous to and across the street from the subject property was also made. Entered into evidence this evening are the following exhibits A through D, which includes the legal notice, sign-in sheet, application, and the staff report dated May 24th, 2024. You're up, Susan.
So the zoning permit W763 was issued for the construction of the residence on October 1977. Zoning permit W8724 was issued for construction of an in-ground pool in August of 1984. According to the Delaware County Auditor's site, the subject property was purchased by Mr. Lacko in September of 2001. In June of 2002, zoning permit 20020559 was issued for construction of a 1,500 110 square foot accessory building and a 14 by 22 foot deck. And zoning permit 2017227 was issued in August of 2017 for the installation of an 8-foot tall fence. No additional zoning permits were found. Staff was contacted by the applicant's attorney, Rebecca Skeels, prior to submission of the conditional use permit. Staff provided Ms. Skeels with information regarding the need to obtain a conditional use approval for an accessory dwelling as provided for in section 804.03 of the zoning resolution. And that would be, the conditional use would need to be obtained before they could apply for the zoning permit. On April 17th, 2024, the conditional use application was submitted for approval of the accessory dwelling. So the conditional use permit has specific standards in the code. The accessory dwelling is permitted as a conditional use in the suburban residential district under section 804.03 in accordance with section 1713. An accessory dwelling is defined in Article 4 of the zoning resolution as an accessory use consisting of a single-family dwelling that comprises some or all portions of the accessory building. So the applicant, as part of the application, they did go through and address each of the conditions listed in section 1713. The first one is accessory dwellings shall only be permitted in zoning districts in which they have been expressly authorized within this resolution. Additional use approval shall be required unless otherwise specified. Their response was the property is zoned suburban residential district, which under section 804 conditional use allows for an accessory dwelling. That's an accurate statement. The code does allow an accessory dwelling in an accessory building in the suburban residential district. The 1713.02 states that accessory dwellings shall only be established on lots that are greater than 1 acre in size. The applicant's response was the property is 5 acres, and we believe that to be correct. According to the Delaware County Auditor's site, it does state that it is a 5-acre parcel. The number of accessory dwellings containing an accessory dwelling shall be limited to 1 per lot. The response was the homeowner will remove 2 chicken coops on the property and 1 greenhouse if necessary to get the guest house. Staff believe that this statement does not provide verification that no other accessory buildings on the property contain dwelling space. So applicant should provide information for the use of each building currently located on the property. 1713.04 states that only 1 accessory dwelling shall be permitted within an accessory building, and 1713.05 states that an accessory dwelling may comprise up to 100% of the accessory building. The applicant responded to both of those sections together and stated that per attached drawings and plans, the accessory dwelling shall comply. Based on the floor plan and elevation photos provided, it appears that the accessory dwelling will comprise all of the square footage of the accessory building, and the applicant should verify that that is correct. 1713.06 states that the floor area of an accessory dwelling shall not exceed the floor area of the principal dwelling, that it is accessory to. The applicant responded that the principal building is approximately 6,822 square feet, and the accessory dwelling proposed is 1,366 square feet. According to the Delaware County Auditor's website, it does state that the accessory dwelling, or excuse me, the principal dwelling is 5,456 square feet above grade and 2,956 square feet below grade. And then 1713.07 states that accessory buildings containing an accessory dwelling shall comply with all provisions established in 1609, as well as all other standards applicable in the zoning resolution in which it is located. In instances of conflict, the provisions within this section shall prevail. The applicant responded that the accessory building shall be in conformity with 1609.01. It shall be erected in the back of the property, not in the front yard, with setbacks in compliance. The homeowner shall remove other buildings to assure that the property does not exceed 5 accessory buildings, and the accessory structure shall not exceed 12 feet in height. In looking at the site, it does, staff feels that some of the accessory buildings may be exempt from that 5 maximum accessory building due to their use. They stated that there's a greenhouse and some chicken coops, and those would be agricultural uses that would exempt them from that 5 building limit. And also, the maximum height of the accessory building on parcels greater than 3 acres would be 35 feet, not 12 feet that the applicant's response stated. So staff did send out the conditional use application to police, fire, and maintenance. The fire marshal did not have any comments or concerns. No other responses were received. The legal notice, as Mark stated, was published in the Delaware Gazette on May 15th, and copies were sent to the adjacent property owners, and a notification sign was placed on the subject property on May 14th, 2023. And we did receive 2 inquiries about this application. One of the callers is here tonight, and the other person was just asking where they could find the application on the website so they could look at what was submitted.
Anything for staff? Anybody? Let's hear from the applicant. Introduce yourself. Oh, and turn on your microphone. I noticed it's off. There you go.
There we go. I'm attorney Rebecca Skeels on behalf of Anthony Lacco, and this is actually his son.
I'm Brett Lacco, his son.
He's in
Oh.
Costa Rica right now, so he has a business there too, so. So I'll address some of the, I guess, first, the questions that Susan had in the applicant. There is no other accessory building on the property. If you look at the sketch at the top, that is the principal building, and that is all under one roof. So everything is connected under one roof. And then I'll go through the buildings because we did agree that most of these buildings in the back do have an agricultural exemption. When you leave the main dwelling, on the left-hand side, you'll see 2 small buildings. Those are 2 chicken coops. They're not being used right now for chickens, but that's what they are. And right across from them, across the driveway is all concrete all the way back through the property. On the other side of the chicken coops is a storage barn that accommodates, the stuff for the chickens and has storage stuff for the property. if you keep going down the driveway, the next thing on the left is it's a gazebo. I'm sorry, a greenhouse, yeah, so that's the greenhouse there. And then, directly across from it, I guess it's kind of a gazebo, it's just an open-sided building that's for more storage, but it's for outside equipment. And then, there's the proposed building, that's the dark block, and the proposed building is a barn, not for animals, but like a mini guest house, because Mr. Lacko does have 4 children, and they're having grandchildren, and he does entertain at the house, so it's not just for overflow from the main residence. So that's the proposed. And then at the very back of the property is a barn. And the barn is used for storage, and it's got like for hobby, just like a hobby, like a little wood shop in it. I did go to the property today and walked all this, and then I also went through the lakes, because I wasn't sure who was questioning this. From the lakes, from the back of the property, you really can't see any of the structures. I know the trees are full, you can't even see the barn on the back.
So,
Other questions?
okay, I have a question, and I don't care who answers it.
Okay.
The 1,500 square foot accessory building, where is it?
It's the dark block.
It should be, it's the Vermont
That's-
barn.
Okay, so that's,
Oh, where is it on there? Yeah, it's the dark,
is that? This,
yes,
that,
yes,
that's it?
yeah,
Okay, so that's the barn.
yes.
Okay, 1,500 feet.
Barn house, yeah.
The deck, the pool, I don't. And so, now that we've defined what these are, how many of these do we have to take, how many of these chicken coops, storage, whatever you want to call them, do we have to consider when we're counting accessory buildings? Because it sounds to me like the number is 6? Because agricultural purposes tells me that the 2 chicken coops are probably that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong.
The greenhouse is used as a greenhouse.
Greenhouse,
Okay.
The greenhouse, 2 chicken coops,
so that's 3 of them.
yeah. And then, the 2 barns are for storage for
Right.
equipment. So the only one that I would think, none of those, structures have like plumbing or electricity or anything. The
Sure.
barn, the main barn does have electricity in
Okay.
it,
Okay.
at the back, so that would probably, it's
Sure.
used for agriculture too, but that would probably be
And this
one.
the proposed accessory building is not for commercial purposes, it's just for private use without
Correct.
any
Correct, yeah.
rental?
No.
Airbnb?
No,
No?
family use only.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
So you said the addition that's the main house and then the one that's to the right,
Right,
that's attached?
yeah, it's all attached under one roof. Yeah, you can see like if you look in between. Yeah.
Head of this rather than the drawing? I know. Is there, like on the auditor's site, Joe? Here, hang on.
So the current outbuildings are the shelter house right next to the residence?
No, there's, the current outbuildings is when you leave the primary residence, there's
Gotcha.
2 chicken coops, and then a storage barn across the driveway from them, a greenhouse, and then
So it's
another,
just all the back lot things?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, and then another, like, open, it's not enclosed
And there are
storage.
agricultural exemptions to those?
Yes,
Is that what I'm understanding?
So let's go. Shelter house, that would be 1.
The one right there in the main
House,
property?
that would be 2.
Yeah.
Buildings.
Yeah, that was my question.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
Pool
chicken
house-
coop would be 3 and 4.
Does the pool house just contain the pool equipment, or is there like like a cabana changing space, or it's just the
It's just the
equipment?
pool equipment.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's gotta be
Okay.
relatively small then?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So they would have 9 structures, buildings. Adding another one. And
And then
then
you're
she's
adding
saying
down
the,
pool.
except the
Including
greenhouse, excuse me, the greenhouses and chicken coops would be ag. And then if the barns are used for animals, then they would be ag. But if they're used for like, I think she said the
Storage and wood shop.
barn would be
Right.
for like hobbies and
Yeah, the
stuff,
one
then
across
that would
from the-
not be
Yeah, the
an
one across from
agriculture
the,
exemption.
the one
excuse me.
across from the chicken coop has the stalls in it, doesn't it? And then you say it has a
Correct.
stall. There's no animals there now,
No
but it did have
animals.
animals. Yeah. I think there's 8.
So are there any of these we're not counting?
I mean, I would say if chicken coops have chickens in them, then they would be ag.
So right now
If
it's
you have
just
a greenhouse and it's a greenhouse, then that would be ag.
Right.
But if you use them for something else, then they would no longer be ag.
Okay.
So if you take those 3 out of consideration, then we're at 6, and we're adding 1, so 7. Is that, no,
Well,
it's just
wait, is
6,
the-
including the new one, which actually
5.
complies. Right, 5 currently, adding 1, correct?
No, because you have the main residence,
Okay,
the storage barn across from the chicken coops,
right,
the guest house, the greenhouse is exempt, the guest house, and then the barn, and then, I don't know, I mean, the one storage thing, it's open walls, but I don't, even if you include that, that's 5.
No, but it looks like the garage is not attached. That's why it's showing up as another building, right?
The main house garage is attached. Yeah.
It does not look like it's attached, that's why. And also on this drawing. Does the auditor think it's attached? Yeah, does the auditor think it's attached? I mean, right, that's,
Let me,
yeah.
Sorry, it's hard to see, but you can see there appears to be some sort of roof structure or breezeway.
okay, because it didn't look like it.
Yeah,
Oh,
when
there?
you zoom out, you can't really see it, but there is a,
Oh, it's like a breezeway, like a roof attachment type thing, okay.
But these are clearly separate structures. Here, the shelter and the pool house are separate structures.
Okay, so I guess the question that I have for us is, are we gonna require removing this? My preference, just for the record, is, you know, I think it's a superfluous exercise to require that 2 chicken coops and a greenhouse are removed in some
Yeah.
form or fashion. I don't know. That's my opinion, if we're inclined to approve the application. So, apparently I just moved this into discussion. So, see how that happens? Suddenly you're in discussion, don't know. I don't know, what do you guys think? Anybody have any questions for staff or the applicant?
I just want to clarify for the record that the pool house and the shelter house are outbuildings. So if I'm not including the chicken coop or the greenhouse, and so do we have 3 greenhouses in total? So 1 pool house, 2 shelter house, 3 barn, 4 second barn, 5 the big back barn.
Hobby barn.
Yeah. What did I miss?
There's
Where the chicken coops, right?
yeah,
It says on this thing greenhouse. Are those chicken coops, like the small rectangular ones?
think
Okay, it says,
those are
all right.
Yeah.
So then
They're
we're at
mislabeled, it
6,
looks like.
7. We're at 7 total right now.
Let me get one thing out of the way here.
Yes.
Is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on this application? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on.
I just want to make sure we're accurate with the number that we're looking at here.
Yeah, I agree.
So the building off to the side here, when we issued the zoning permit, it was issued as an accessory building.
Okay.
So if it, I don't know if it's attached, how it is attached, I don't know that. I'm just going by what we issued the permit for, and we issued it as an accessory building.
So then I would go with accessory building.
So then you would be at 10, and then minus whatever you might consider ag exempt.
Is that, okay, I thought that this barn that's down was the accessory building that was permitted. But it's not, it's that?
That's already there.
Yeah, that's another, which buildings were already there when the house was built?
I'm not sure.
It's a home
I-
renovation, so you have a skeleton of an old house with add-ons onto it. It's a renovated house.
I mean, the accessory buildings, like.
It's
were
not,
they-
it's not, the one they're proposing now is not there.
Right.
Sure.
All
It's
these
not
other ones, were they, you don't have permits for all of these other buildings. So I
No,
was curious if
because
they
I
were,
think they,
were there-
they were using them for ag, so I don't have permits for those,
Okay.
correct?
got it.
Except for the one closest to the main house.
Right.
That was permitted
Is that
as
the
an
1,500?
accessory building.
That's
Okay,
the 1,500
got it.
square foot accessory building? No.
That's existing. That's existing.
No, I understand that. I got that. No, where you talk about the one that was permitted in 2002.
2?
Yes, that's the one I'm asking about. And that's,
Even though it's zoned.
is this that?
Yes,
That's the one that was permitted in 2002 as an accessory building.
correct.
Got it.
Okay. 'Cause-
But it's attached to the main, I mean, I don't know.
Well, we understand that. However, if it's attached and we don't have a permit, that raises a different set of issues, because that means there was construction done without permits.
Okay, it's attached.
So, because our records only show it's supposed to be detached. So,
And that's
if it-
currently used as a garage, I take it?
Yes.
So,
And the rest of this,
Doesn't an accessory dwelling, and I'm not, doesn't someone have to live there and have plumbing and electric and?
not an accessory building.
Oh, okay, all right, I see.
You're asking to have an accessory dwelling within an accessory building. So everything that's not the principal use, the principal house, so this is a residential property, so the principal use is the residence, and then everything else is accessory. So every other building is accessory to the principal
Okay.
use.
Got it, okay.
the other issue that comes up with those accessory buildings, if they were built as ag and they're no longer used as ag, they should have zoning permits pulled for them to verify zoning compliance. And they should count towards the building maximum. So I guess I heard we're like at 10 total accessory buildings, including if you count the garage that's supposed to be accessory and detached. And we're saying how many ag buildings possibly are there?
I heard 3.
3. So that puts us at 7 existing,
Right.
and they're asking for an 8th. That's already 2 over the limit,
Right.
which is, that's a variance at that point. And now they're asking for a third ones to put them at 8. That, again, that's a variance. So to me, you've got 2 different, it's a complicated one. You've got multiple things going on here. I don't know how I have concerns about approving conditional use for an additional accessory building when we're not even sure the site currently is compliant. We've got the issue about the garage that was supposed to be detached is now attached somehow without any records on the
Right, and I
township.
think,
And accessory buildings that were ag that apparently are no
Yep.
longer ag on the site. So
I think it's important to identify what's, particularly with that accessory building, attached, not attached, accessory building, permit, no permit, obviously there's no permit, but apparently it's attached. I think that's an issue for me.
Yeah, am I wrong? I have 8 asking for a 9th.
Excuse me?
Show you. I have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we're excluding that because it's a greenhouse, still used as a greenhouse. And then this is the proposed new one, which would be 9. Yeah, those are 4 or 5, but they're not used as chicken coops right now, right?
Is that what she said? They're not- okay.
So one of the conditional use standards is the accessory buildings and the dwelling have to comply with all the provisions of 1609. So I don't know how there could be a determination, if the site's not compliant with 1609, it would not be able to satisfy that condition.
Current form, it cannot.
Absent of a variance or buildings being removed.
Right, exactly. We can condition for how many, 3 to be removed, 4 to be, I don't know.
Yeah,
what the
my
number is.
client's
I've
willing to
lost
remove
count of how many
buildings.
we would have to have.
Yeah, it seems unclear at this point.
I agree. And so, as I just said an hour ago, we're not good at shooting and moving targets here. We really, I think we need to define A, what's permitted, and what's compliant and what's not compliant. And I think B, we need to determine how to address the compliance issue before we even get to the conditional use permit. That's my opinion. So. Anybody? Got really quiet on this.
If they put chickens in a chicken coop,
Well, then it's an ag use. But
then it's
even
an
if,
ag use.
but even if you take, if I hear staff correctly, even if you take those 3, the greenhouse and the 2 chicken coops out of the equation, they're still not in compliance. Correct, Joe?
That's what I'm hearing, that we're
That's what- I mean,
still,
And I think the issue is really revolves around this garage, this accessory building, 1,500 square feet. It's attached, not attached, we don't know. It's not permitted to be attached.
so and my guess is, even if they had to pull some retroactive permits, it's probably not gonna be an issue, because if it was, well, I don't know, because now it becomes part of the principal building, and now it's subject to the side yard setbacks of a principal building, and not the 10-foot setback in the accessory building. So that poses its own problem. So there's a lot to unpack here.
I agree with you, and I don't think we can get to the conditional use until we nail that down. That's my opinion. And at that point.
Well, that's a decision for the applicant, because clear, if the board has questions or does not believe the site is compliant with 1609,
I don't think. I personally
and,
don't think
you know,
it
if that's, I mean, that's one of the standards that it has to pass. If you feel like it's not gonna pass it, then the board may not be able to support it. The applicant has a decision to make at this point of how they wish to proceed.
is. Right, risk, or either continue or risk that we don't grant the conditional use. I think that's the opportunities on the table. So.
If
thoughts?
they continue, then we get an opportunity then.
Right, to determine
To try to bring it
compliance.
into compliance,
Right, to
however.
determine compliance.
Yeah, it would buy them time. I don't know if they would want a table, if they need
Wanna-
time, or if
exactly.
they want to do a continuance to a
Yeah.
date, time, place, certain.
Yeah, I mean, my client, the owner's not here, so I could talk to him and see, but he had said before, I said the only issue I thought was like too many, and he'd said he'd remove buildings to
Right.
get in compliance, so I can talk to
Well,
him about that.
And like I said, like you heard me say earlier, is that I think we have a specific, first of all, we need to determine the compliance issue, and how many it would be necessary to approve, rather than, say, well, 2, 3, 5, I don't know what the number is. Work with staff, if you're open to a continuance, to determine the compliance, and then we can get to the conditional use. Because the way it is right now, I don't think it's in a position to grant a conditional use permit due to the non-compliance of the remainder of the property. That's my opinion. You guys can disagree with me,
It's also my take, yes.
So the motion should come from the applicant?
I
that's
Well-
the direction they choose to go.
I think we have to make a motion to continue it to the next meeting based on the applicant's.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah, that's fair, yeah.
All right, then I will make a motion to continue the application based on the discussion on compliance. And to the next meeting, which is June 25th, if I'm not mistaken. And with working with staff and have the documentation available to them by the 17th of June, I think. Does that give you enough time, do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would make that motion unless.
Second.
Mark Phillips seconds. Anybody else, anything? Okay, I'll call the roll. Mr. Christian?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson? Yes. Ms. Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips? Yes. Chair votes yes. We'll see you next month. And the hearing is concluded at 9:28. Okay. Yes.
So now, the first one was continued, Cardinal Self-Storage was continued to June.
I know.
I already have 3 applications, so this makes 5 applications for the June.
Well, that's a new record.
So we're discussing possibly making the meeting, start earlier?
Wow,
Or-
yeah, you have an option.
I'm open to I'm open to starting the meeting earlier, say, for example, at 6 or 6:30. Yeah, 4. I don't know. Mark Phillips is already planning a trip out of town for that day. I'm open to suggestion on that, and really, because it affects you guys more than anything. What would you prefer?
Could we see if they'll continue for 2 months? How urgent? Yeah, could you accommodate the board by?
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
sure? I mean, I don't want
I haven't
you to.
started anything, I mean, I've talked to people, but I haven't started anything with any builders, I don't have any or plans or anything, so I mean.
Okay, so
they're
I
at
don't
the mercy of
want us
You
to.
guys giving us the go-ahead or not. So
I don't want us to force you into doing something that you're not comfortable with though either.
No, that's
Wait
fine.
2 months and.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
fine.
the
Get our
July
stuff together.
meeting, which is
Yeah.
20.
You need to go back and amend your motion.
Yes, I will amend my motion to continue the hearing to July, help me,
Let me tell you.
25th. I'm gonna pull-
It needs to probably be, as part of that motion to rescind and revise the date.
Right, okay.
Rescind the prior motion and
Okay,
revise the
I will
date.
rescind my prior motion, and I will make a motion to.
That motion already passed, so your motion, it's going to be a motion to rescind the prior motion.
Okay, then let's do that first. Let's make a motion to rescind the prior motion.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Christian, Mr. Hanson, Ms. Yu.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips? Yes. And I will vote yes also. Yeah, I knew there was going to be somebody out there. Okay, and now I will make a new motion to continue this case to July 23rd, with documentation being to staff on the 10th?
The deadline for materials for applications is June 25th, but you can modify that date if you so wish.
Yeah, usually on the continuances I do, because I'm that guy. What's, is this my dirty phone? I guess it is. Calendar. No calculator. I'm trying to make it not burdensome on staff too.
Couple of weeks would be nice.
Yes? That gives you,
That's a week.
oh, is it? Oh, yeah, it is. How about 10th?
Okay.
July 10th? Good?
Sold.
Good, thank you. Appreciate it. And I appreciate your patience tonight, too.
Oh, no
You
problem.
guys,
Thank
your timing is horrible. Okay, so, let-
You
let-
used to it.
Yeah,
yeah,
we learned a lot, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll second the motion.
okay. Mr.
Yes.
Christian, I've forgotten who you
That's
are.
okay, yes.
Mr. Hanson.
Yes.
Ms. Yu.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Thank you, appreciate it. Sorry to keep you out all night.
Oh, no, you're fine. Thank you.
Okay. And the last thing on the agenda tonight, which, oh, and so the hearing is concluded at 9:37. Okay, election of officers. I want to do not at all, but I guess we need to do it. So, election of officers. You guys do whatever you want to do.
Mark Harmon for chairman.
So you can do this the very thorough way as scripted out.
Yes.
There's also the alternative.
Yes.
What the zoning commission did was just a motion to retain for the current
I
setup
was
for
at a
the.
club meeting that did exactly the same thing, except we can't do that.
But you can't do that because that's right, you don't have your vice chair.
Was
Have
vice
to
chair.
elect a new vice
You also,
chair.
get in the alternative, you could all just do it as one singular motion. I mean, Robert's Rules of Order would say you have to go through all that nominating and all that stuff,
Right,
but
we have dispensed with that the last couple of years.
you could fast track it, sure, if you wanted to.
Okay, so
Benson makes it work.
we'll do chairman first. If you guys want to retain me, that's fine. We can vote on it. If you want to do something else, that's fine too. I'll still keep coming, like it or not.
Nominate you, Mark, for chairman.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Yu. Here, we don't have to do I can do up or down, can't we? Yeah. All in
Ayes.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. So, vice chair, what's your pleasure here, people?
I'd nominate Teresa Yu.
What's that?
I would nominate Teresa
Teresa?
as the vice chair.
Okay, I'll
She has
second that.
Experience.
Yeah, she's been here almost as long as I have.
Yeah.
You guys,
Silent but deadly.
oh. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, well, there you go. Good luck. I'm not coming back to any more meetings, you know, no. All right, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Not everybody at once. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned.